probably going to pop off of here.
Hey, what's going on, Andrew?
But I appreciate
hang on,
it,
don't pop off yet.
Hold on, one more exchange here. Big Bad Mama.
Hang on, don't pop off here. I want.
He left. Well, you could say what you're gonna say. We could pretend that he was here.
Come back up, Big Bad Mama.
Big Bad Mama, come on. It's a fun panel.
Come back up for a minute. Let's have a little chat.
Flow State, were you gonna defend Big Bad Mama or somewhere in between?
No, I was gonna try to do better than Big Bad Mama, but
okay,
from the beginning, I don't want to pick up right here where you guys are at.
Okay, so you've already gone through the rights thing, right? With Andrew and other people, right?
I picked up some of the conversation last night.
Okay, do you also skip to we're just dealing with force here?
With force.
Yeah, when it comes to rights, just skip to the end of this part of it.
Well, I mean, it depends on what you mean by rights. If you mean them as in a actual tangible thing, then yeah, all we're talking about is force. If you mean them as in a sentiment held, either way,
okay, good. So that's where I was starting Andrew with. Now, Andrew, he's going to try to do it better than Big Bad Mama, and by all means, I've been talking for 20 minutes, not getting through to anybody. So, you guys can get to
that dude wouldn't respond to what you said.
Yeah, that's
so right. he had an NPC talking points memo where it's Jimbob said bad things, so Jimbob bad. So Jimbob said bad things, so Jimbob bad. And then when you bring up points, you offer no refutation. So it's not. I do disagree with you that it's bad faith. It's not bad faith. They're just stupid, right?
Okay,
so it's not bad faith. They're just actually stupid. They don't know how to critically think past the talking points, and when they do, they don't like the conclusions, and so. They just move back to the talking point, right? So as long as the justification is that Jim Bob is evil,
right?
You can believe whatever you want because you're evil, right? So
yeah, meanie pants.
That's evil, right?
Evil, worse than meanie pants.
People who believe there's no ontology to evil think you're evil, though. But anyway,
right. That's right.
Getting into this, the position that you stated is correct. That rights reduced to force. The problem that he was having was the valuation of when you say, well, actually this creates a society where women are revered, and we want our best and brightest at home taking care of the future generations, not slaving away in the workforce. That seems stupid. And those are the types of claims they don't want to deal with. They just always point to. But all women are going to be doctors and lawyers and shit, right? Even though they're not, they make sandwiches. They make sandwiches and they work in the service industry and they do everything on planet Earth except doctors. They basically never do doctors.
Andrew, hold on a second.
Yankees are talking about. It sounds like rights are just a propaganda cookie your politicians used to bait your votes. Fortune cookies taste better. I want cookies now. This bullshit about rights is sitting on some bullshit.
That's right. Yeah.
Well, this message never would have gotten as popular as it was, except that we all experienced the COVID-19 lockdowns. And so it's very easy now to display for the world that rights are complete bullshit.
Yeah.
You don't really have any of them. And It was always an illusion that you thought you did. So
and I would say that if you even said rights exist and that had something to do with your permissions of behavior, I would say increasing women in the government would actually work against those things anyway. Not that we hold that rights are the ultimate, like freedom is ultimate, but from that perspective, it's kind of self-refuting anyway, because you get more women in power from this egalitarian position, which is all about rights, which is all about liberty to do things. And yet what they end up voting for is restrictions against the thing that you're arguing they should also have. And it's just a lot of mental gymnastics because the admittance in society that women exercise soft power, not hard power, is just not something that we want to look at. And I don't know why exactly we don't want to look at it, but we just don't want to examine it because if we do, we're just not going to like the conclusions. It creates, from the secular view, it's the most terrifying view in the world because it shows them that men are not only benevolent, but they are the grantors of rights. If it's not God and it's not from their view, then who is it? So they say, well, it's women themselves. They grant themselves rights. And it's like, where?
Yeah, well, of course,
Yeah.
right? That
Well,
would
yeah,
be the
where?
self-granting, yeah. They
Well,
never,
Yeah, where?
we know God didn't grant it, right? Like,
we don't say God granted rights, though.
right. So we
Yeah,
all agree
yeah.
that rights aren't really a thing.
Yeah, well, no, I don't think so. I think that when you say a right, that you actually mean a duty, and that they're conflated. The two things are conflated all the time. But I think a right entails no responsibility. It's just an entitlement.
Right. I mean, I think that they're corresponding things. You can't have one without the other.
Yeah, so that's where I'm going to deviate with you, right? Why can't you have one without the
Andrew.
other?
Sorry, I have interrupting
Round two.
web chats now.
Andrew argued with a fatty last night,
Oh.
and now Jimbob is arguing with a big bad
Yeah,
mama.
dude, the fatty thing was so absurd yesterday. That was like you going into the gun, the shooting range, Andrew, and just like using your, like a revolver in your left hand for fun. But fun to watch. Anyway.
Well, these guys are, they're the up and coming kind of debaters, the next gen, and it's like, got to learn them out, got to learn them up now, right? So, but back to this flow state, I can just kind of demonstrate that you're wrong. So, do you have a right to own a gun?
I don't.
Well, even that makes my point. But
generally, no. The fact.
But typically people do. Typically people do, right?
No, well, not really. It's the fact that it's written.
Well, in the U.S.,
self-defeating.
Yeah. In the U.S., they have a right. I mean, it's a Second Amendment right?
They say it is. So
yeah. Okay. But yeah. Do you have a duty to own a gun though?
Okay. Touche.
Yeah. No. The answer is no. Yeah. By the way, on your First Amendment, hang on. Your First Amendment right. You have a right to speech. Do you have a duty though to exercise speech?
Well, no, but the corresponding duty would be on others, right? There's a duty of the government not to suppress those rights.
Yeah, but so then if all rights are affirmed in the negative, then there's no duty. That's my whole point. And they're all affirmed in the negative. Every one of them. Voting's affirmed in the negative. So this is the Charter of Rights is just all the things government can't do bad to you, right? That's it. So these are all entitled. There's no duty on your end. The government just can't do these bad things no matter what. There's no additional duties that you have. They're just granted to you.
The duty holder and the right holder are not the same person usually. But
yeah, okay, hang on. So this is my point then, right? So then what you're considering rights are actually duties. The government has a duty to protect you. They don't have a right to protect you. So they're granting you rights.
I would have a right to.
So they're granting you rights. That's my point.
But it would be both. If they have a duty to protect me, then I have a right to be protected.
How would you have a right to be protected? Because they could switch the duty.
They can switch the duties.
They could just change the duties, right?
Yeah, you just change the duties.
Now we're back to rights aren't really a thing.
That's where we started.
They're not. They're not a thing, right? So all that's really there is a duty, and then you say, well, if you're fulfilling your duty, then I have a right to this duty, which that doesn't make sense.
If they have a duty to protect the citizens, and then they switch the duty, then they don't really have a duty.
Yeah, that's right. They don't.
Yeah, arbitrary.
So when you're looking at all grantings of rights, that's all they are. So just a granting of force from some individual or collective's view that will use force in order to give you some type of benefit.
So would an appropriate title to this stream be rights cannot be justified at all?
I could have done that, but because I'm clickbaiting atheists specifically, it's atheists who usually appeal to the rights, the variety of rights with their modifiers. So it's a trap, basically.
Yeah. Well, that's all. That's it. The idea here is just so the big fight now that the kind of awakening has happened, and this will go away. In a couple of years, unless there's more catastrophes, people will gradually begin to forget. But it's still pretty fresh right now. These COVID-19 lockdowns and the fact that the left was saying, look, vaccinations need to be mandatory, and the fact that there was a push from the government to do all sorts of kind of heinous things with businesses, things like this.
people essentially were able to determine very quickly that all of these enshrined things you consider rights are just nonsense. They're just
Well, this guy
nonsense.
thinks that there are 5 fundamental rights. So let's let Mustache Man present, and maybe Flow State will agree with him or not. We'll see what happens here. So what are the 5? You said in the text you think there are 5 God-given rights that we couldn't disagree with.
Yeah. So I don't know if I want to be on Team Flow State. Sorry, Flow State, but
I don't know if you
yeah.
will be.
So
Forget it. You're on your own team.
no, good.
Go. Yeah, just go.
Good. So I would say first, I've mentioned this to you before, jimbob. So the right to exist, as in the right to be alive.
You don't have a right to be alive.
Yeah.
The right. Well, you by fact of being alive, you have the right to be alive.
Till somebody
No.
kills you.
So hang on. I just want to test this real quick, if you don't mind. So a bird, because it can fly, it has a right to fly.
Yeah.
Okay. So then a prisoner who's eating food has a right to eat food.
No, but what makes this different?
Wait, what? What?
Yeah, but there's action of flying required. So with the right to be
There's
alive,
action of eating. There's action of eating required to eat.
yeah. But to be alive doesn't really require an action. It's just something that happens, right? So
No,
it does require
food to
Nope.
oxygen. Food to oxygen
No,
analogy.
it does require action to be alive.
Yep.
Right. So many, and in fact, you make actions all day long to stay alive. Like, for instance, I'm guessing you don't lick your finger and stick it in very many light sockets. I'm guessing you don't jump off of large
Light
buildings,
sockets.
right? I'm guessing that you don't.
but
I'm guessing you don't grab blunt objects and strike yourself in the face until you're not alive anymore. Like,
no,
it seems like it
Yeah,
requires
yeah.
many actions.
no, I hear what you're saying, but what I mean is the right to basically exist. So you don't have to continue to exist to have existed.
Right. You're saying
So
you
it
have a
doesn't
right to
require
exist.
action.
Here, hold on. Who gives you
Yeah.
the right to exist?
By the fact that you were born, you have basically been granted by God the chance to exist in the world.
God can take your
And
right
that
to
cannot-
exist. Wait, can God
Well,
take your right
nothing
to
can
exist?
nothing
God
can
take
take your right away to exist.
So, okay, so when you
mosquito
don't
can.
exist, hold on. If I delete somebody with force with a pew pew, am I taking their life or their right?
Well, you're taking their life, but they would have still existed. You cannot
actually-
take away the fact
I-
that somebody that exists.
Yeah. Well, I actually can just kind of refute this easily, right? What makes existence itself a right without appealing to existence itself?
Appealing to existence itself.
Well, if you appeal to the thing to describe the thing, you've created a circular argument. You're saying the thing that makes this a right is because it's a right, and the thing that makes it a right is because it's a right, because it's a right, because this thing is a right.
It's I
No,
think therefore I
it's-
am, but for rights, for self right.
It's not really circular in the sense of
No, it's circular.
something
Here,
you're-
in fact, I'll give you a flow chart,
Okay.
bro. Here, ready? Here's how it goes. You have the right to exist. What gives you the right to exist? The fact that you exist. But what makes that a
No,
right?
God.
The fact that you
No,
exist
God.
makes it a right.
Yeah,
God
no,
doesn't
God
give you-
gives you the right to exist.
Okay, well,
By
can
the
you
fact
give
that
me
you do
give me the
exist,
descriptor?
it would-
Give me the descriptor that God gives you that right.
Okay, so by the fact that you exist, the
Let's
chances
circle
of you
again.
existing. Okay, so your existence cannot be taken away from you, and it is a privilege to be alive, right?
How can it
And
not be
that's
taken
your
from you?
usually the description.
Wait, hold on. No, it can be. No, it can be taken from
Okay.
you. So what do you mean
Yeah,
it can't
absolutely.
be taken from you?
How can the fact that you existed be taken away from you?
Is there? Do you have it that you?
Okay, but hang on. How can the fact that you never existed be taken away from you?
Yeah, see, that's circular.
Oh, wait, what? They're both circular, bro.
If you've never existed, there's nothing to take away.
Oh, okay. Wait a second. So, you agree with me that all individuals are hypothetical, right? That there's going to be future people who don't exist yet that are hypothetical?
Yep.
Yeah, you're saying that they have a right to exist. even though they don't exist yet.
Well, if they come into existence, then by that fact, they were given the right to
Yeah,
exist.
but they're coming from non-existence, right?
I guess so, yes.
Yeah, so if they don't exist right now, then you can't take that away from them not existing right now. It's the same argument in reverse.
What's
Yeah,
the
but
number
I
two?
mean, if we
What's the
Okay,
number two?
so
This is
number
gonna
two-
go looping. Yeah.
number two, you have the right to your soul.
Your soul.
second.
You have the
Like
right.
you own it?
You have the right to own it. You have the right to be in possession of your soul.
Who's the? Hold on. Here's a. Me and Andrew talked about this once. Who's
What
the
about when you
owner of
hang on?
the thing?
What about when you die?
Yeah, I mean, again, this is a point of like a religious talking point, right? So all of mine are based on religion. So if there's afterlife, then yeah.
Wait, hang on. It sounds like God has the right to your soul, not
Always
you.
had it. Always did. Always owned it.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, but do you have access to your soul?
Who's the
No.
owner? Who's the owner?
No, you don't. No, you don't have access to your soul. No, not where it goes. You don't have access to where it goes.
Yeah, I'm not saying to where it goes, but you are in
Then you
possession
don't
of
own
the
it.
soul, correct?
Then you don't own it. You don't own. Well, you
Yeah,
don't
but
own it.
It's even more a right if you don't own it, but you have access to it, as in God grants you access to your
Yeah.
soul. Even
Hey, wait,
so you don't
Chris,
even own it.
Chris, hold on. You
Yeah.
have a
Okay. Hang on.
violation
So,
of the law of identity.
so I just want to make sure we got this right. You are your soul, right?
Yeah.
Okay. You say you have a right to you.
Well, you have a right to be whatever the human experience of being a human with a soul is.
Okay. But somebody can kill you and your soul can be sent to hell, right?
Yeah, but
Okay. So do you think that most people would prefer that do you think that most people would prefer their soul was not sent to hell?
Yes.
Okay. Well, then they don't have a right to do anything with their soul.
Because they would just prefer to put
They
it
have
into heaven. They would have the control to put it into heaven. Autonomy over
Right.
their soul.
Right. And they don't have
Yeah,
it.
but I mean, but don't you have the capability to through how you live your life,
we're here.
determine where your soul would go?
No, those things are granted to you. Those things are literally granted to you by grace, not by right. By grace, not by right.
And if God already
So,
knows
I
everything
mean,
before it happens, then you never had a right to any outcome for your soul other than the.
Plus,
Right.
Andrew pointed out a bigger problem here. There's an identity problem is that who's the thing that's owning the thing you're possessing called the soul? You've split your being from a person who's can own things to this thing called the soul that you have that's not you. And that's why Andrew was like, are you the soul? Because if you are the soul, owning yourself still doesn't make any sense from a Christian view, but certainly owning a soul would be that there's two items now, right? There's a soul,
Yeah,
the thing you possess, and then there's the you who's somehow separable now. Well, who's that you if it's not also tied in, from a Christian view, by the way, where this is a tripartite element of reality for for man, right? Soul, mind, body. And you don't separate these two as parts. It sounds like your argument for God gave you the soul has already been refuted that you have power over it, because Andrew just demonstrated if that were the case, you could govern where your soul goes because you have a right over it. You never did, and you will not in the future. That also assumes the power of judgment that you have access to that. So what's the third one now?
All right, but yeah, with that, it would be you as the person, the human body, and then the soul as a separate entity. As we know, they are different.
Yeah, but you just reduce the body to a machine then.
Well, hang on. Well, let's just do these. Go through the other without refuting these. Let's go to the next one. Tell me the next one. Too.
Okay. So you have the right to experience your experience of your reality.
Okay. Give me the last one.
That's existence.
So okay, then you have the right given by God to be absolved of your sins.
Okay. So here's what I'm going to do. Here's what I'm going to do instead. Instead of refuting these, I'm just going to grant all of them as being true. It literally doesn't hurt my position. It doesn't hurt my position at all. So everything I still say about material rights would still be true. everything that I say about legal rights would still be true.
Yeah.
Everything I say about individual rights would still be true, even if I granted all of these items as being inalienable rights, that because you are you, you own you, and all this is an extension of you owning you, because you're you.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah, so
And I agree
none of this would create a single refutation to any position either myself or Jimbob has. So ultimately, arguing it is mental masturbation.
Well, I would agree with you on all of the others. That's why I defined it as God-given rights. As my only point in bringing this up was that there are certain rights or certain privileges that don't
but here's the thing. Since these things do not need to be tangled with, it's unimportant, right? It's literally unimportant that they be tangled with in order to create reputations for the external positions that we hold. Why even contend with them at all? Fine. If you believe that you have a right to your soul and you have a right to your consciousness and a right to your experience because you have all of those things and do all those things, you can experience torture and nobody can take that right away from you. Fine. We'll just grant it. And it still hurts no position of ours at all. So your inalienable right is that if you are gang raped, you have the right to experience that. Okay. Granted.
Well, I have the right to be.
Granted, and it hurts nothing, right? So ultimately it just goes into the who cares category.
It's inaccessible in the end, really, because especially the second one, which is, I think it was the second one, because like if you say you have a right to exist and I kill you, obviously your temporal existence doesn't exist. So you didn't have the right to exist because I just took it from you. So now you're saying, like Andrew said, now you're going off into this hypothetical world where your soul is still free to roam outside of the material we're talking about. And it's useless to even go there, because what we're talking about is, do you have rights here and now in the temporal sense when we speak about rights?
But also, I'm sorry, Jim Bob, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
That was it.
Oh, also, I would just like to say that the entire thing, your kind of rights argument here, appeals to one supposition, which is false, which is that you have a right to exist because you exist. But the counter to this is you have no right to exist because many people do not exist who would have existed, except we made it so that they didn't exist. So there can't actually be the supposition that you have a right to exist to begin with.
But working with that, but there is no data for that claim. There is data for the people that do exist.
Have you ever heard of a thing called abortion? There's 1 million of them a year in the United States. I'm pretty confident that is removing conscious existence. All of the things in which you claim that you need to have reason for is artificially removed from these people before they exist. So these are not. So now we're past hypothetical person. We're into real person. We know these people would have existed, except that we removed them from existence. So the right claim, which makes the supposition and hinges the supposition on existence, can't be true, because we know that we have tons of people who we artificially make not exist.
No, I hear you, but I mean, obviously, if you don't physically exist, then there would never be a way in which to have a right. So it's kind of
hold on, Chris. I have even a more crucial defeater here. Is that you said you have the right to experience? Basically, it's synonymous with that first one, which is you have a right to your experience, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say someone who's born doesn't fully experience, so we don't get the notion that they want to fully experience the way we do, but we take our duty to say, if we could expand their experience to match ours, such that they can do other things, participate in prayer, be a father, all these other things that we're given as gifts. From your view, should we not violate this right to experience? Is there an ought to not violate the right to experience?
I specifically worked on these in the sense of that they can't be taken away from you. So your experience, even if you were in a coma, you would still be experiencing the reality of being in the coma. So,
Hold on a second. I understand what you're saying. You're saying you have the right to have your experience. I'm saying in the comatose experience, they're having an experience. Now, they don't get to tell us whether they want to come out of that or not, and we assume it. Ought we not uncomatose them? Is that a violation of the right to exist the way they are?
I mean, well, it's the experience of existing. So their
They
experience
haven't- hold
doesn't
on,
are
dude.
subject
They-
to.
Look, they have an experience that they're currently having. Ought we not interfere because they have a right to their experience without their consent, alter their experience to non-comatose? Ought we
Yeah,
not?
you can alter. Yeah, you can alter somebody's.
Dude, not
I mean,
can we?
Yeah.
Ought
You
we?
should. If somebody's in a coma, they shouldn't be in a
They don't-
coma. Yeah.
They don't have a right to their experience then.
Right. Well, here's an even easier way to look at this. Because you say you did exist, nobody can ever take that away from you, right?
Yeah, because your memory
Yeah.
would still remain on in
Right.
people that knew you.
Well, what if you made a time machine and went back in time and killed somebody's parents?
I mean, if we're going into sci-fi now, so I'd have to think about that, obviously. But yeah, I mean, I'm trying to work with reality, Andrew. But
We're way far away from justifying it.
sci-fi, yeah.
Right.
Oh, I mean,
Yes,
there's
you would take away. You would take away them existing. Yes, correct.
okay. So then you could theoretically wipe away a person's existence, even.
Yes, there's my fifth one on the list. The list is the right to die. So also, if we go sci-fi, if you could cryogenically freeze a person, you could, in theory, take away their right to die.
Hold on.
yes.
Well then these right. Well then,
Was that the fifth
well
one?
then these rights you have just described are completely and purely theoretical, based on current descriptors. Right? They're only based on current descriptors, but we can present many situations in which these rights would not exist. So these rights don't exist.
Also, too, here's another thing. They don't. And also, Chris, your experience, someone just asked about dreams, but it actually jolted another part of this, is that, do people have rights to their own memories?
I don't think you could have a right to your memory, because that could be taken via a lobotomy or something. It could be taken.
Hold on.
That can
No,
be
this
taken.
doesn't follow. Hold on. You can kill
Well,
someone.
that
and
eliminates
take their right
experience.
away. Yeah. You can take someone's life away. By your logic, if you could take away their memory, they don't have a right to it. I'm saying you can take away someone's life.
Yeah, but your memory is not you. You could be brain dead and still be you.
How do you have? Hold on. How do you have an experience without background associations?
So the experience is in you have touch, you have your senses. That's your experience of your reality.
No. You have you have to interpret that sense data. I'm saying, do
No,
we not use
plants-
our memories?
plants are alive.
Hold on.
Plants are alive and they don't have memories.
Hold on a second. We, as human beings, in our experience, we interpret sense data and we make associations to past, right? This is why induction is part of our experience, is that. So I'm asking, well, if every part of you, like your soul, is, you're saying you have a right to, how could you actually separate things like memories included in that, if that's a part of the makeup of who you self-referentially say is you? You have a past, right? You don't have the right to the memory of your past and your childhood from this model. You should, if you're consistent, you should say, yes, you have a right to your memories. Now, if you lose your memories, if you have a right to your lost memories, then suddenly you have the right to someone else's service and labor to institute your memories. Do you take that view?
Yeah, I wouldn't say no. You don't have a right to your memories. As I've said, you could have a brain injury and not remember who you are, but you would still be you at the end of the day.
Well, it's really
experiences being alive.
This is such
having a consciousness.
This is such a weird position because, well,
Dude, it's
I don't
to give rights.
I actually don't understand, but I don't. I know, but I actually don't understand the position. So I was just thinking, let's say a kid is born into slavery. Let's say, okay,
yeah.
Your position is because he is experiencing slavery, he has a right to experience it, right? But
yeah,
does he have no right to not experience it?
I mean, yes. I mean, he has the right to change his experience. It's subjective to him, right? So he's got control over it. Yeah, he does.
How does like what? Like he just pretends that he's not a slave, or?
Well, when you're angry, you can choose to not act upon that anger, right?
Yeah, well, that's true, but the conditionals there is that that's internal, not external to you. So I don't think you can choose if other people are angry at you, right? Like I don't think you would be able to choose whether or not you're a slave and what that experience would be like in relationship to you.
Yeah, but that's not what other people do. Is not a part of your experience, as in how you are experiencing something, right?
I mean, yeah, I think it is.
It is, yeah.
Yeah, I think it is.
I think these five are distinctions without a real difference.
Yeah, I think so
Yeah,
too.
I think I'm just saying, well, because I think that everything you say just hinges on two suppositions that are really poor suppositions. One is that you have the right to exist, though we can clearly see that people can artificially, who are supposed to exist, not exist. So that's my first problem. Then the second is it just sounds like you give the descriptor for is as an ought. You're just saying, because you can experience, you should be able to experience, and so you have a right to do so. It's like, well,
No, I'm saying you
that doesn't. I mean, go ahead. What?
Yeah, you can regardless. And again, with your thing of saying somebody has not been alive, so they would never experience that, or not exist, so they would not have the right to exist. Yeah, but you have to exist to gain that right. So it wouldn't make sense if somebody never existed to add them to a category.
No, that doesn't make any sense.
Well, yeah, no, it's reverse. It's the reverse, right?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense. Like you're saying, existing is a precondition to get that obtaining a right, but what we're saying through our examination here is that you're actually making existing and having a right the same thing, which is like what flowstate said. It's just like you're not there's not any new distinction. It's redundant, and we've already described that. Like if I just took your life, right, the fact that you die, in fact, the fact that we're born into a temporal stage where you actually die, you don't live forever. How is it you have the right? Well, until when? Right? Obviously, you don't.
Yeah. Well, this is
then it would go
yeah. An easy summarization would be, I think, therefore I am. So therefore I have a right to think because therefore I am. It's you're just saying the same thing twice.
Yeah, it's cogito for rights.
Yeah, but even with your abortion argument, right? The woman would still have a memory of the whatever stage it was that was then ended to have existed.
Yeah.
That would.
Yeah, I mean, unless they're in a coma, right?
Why, Chris? I'm interested. Why would you try to? Are you just doing a trying to do devil's advocate?
Dude, it's just nobody ever can come up with, because the thing is, if you work on the normal rights and everything, it's all bullshit. Like I totally agree with you guys.
Why wouldn't you just say gift though? Why wouldn't you just say gift? God gave you a gift of life with duties. Yeah. Why would you need to smuggle in an incoherent argument for the five rights that you're saying? If you could just say God gave us the gift of life. I don't understand what you're fighting for here.
It's the only way I could figure out how to actually come with an argument for a right being a thing. But I do see them as gifts. So you're right. But
so you're just kind of devil's advocating. I see.
It's just
did we ever define right?
I agree with you guys.
Well, I would define a right as an entitlement absent of duty.
Yeah. So I was thinking, what are stuff that you are entitled to do without you needing any duty to it?
So what's an example?
Oh, I just gave 5.
Well, actually, Vesper, get up on stage. We want an actual atheist who thinks rights exist to try to come up here. So yeah,
but those 5 are really one, and there's it doesn't correspond to anything in tangible reality. It's just it's a perspective, right? It's how you understand the things. It's a thought process.
All right, Vesper, get up here. Last
words. All right. Yeah. Well, thanks. I just wanted to bring up an argument. I mean, flowstate, you can refute me, but I'll be in chat hearing your arguments. If you can come up with something better, dude.
Well,
so,
I mean,
thank you.
Oh, you're talking about flowstate? I'm just saying we just reject rights, and there's no reason to hold to rights even the way you presented them. You could just swap it out with gifts, and you would have a bridge to your deontology, your duty to defend and to value life in general without this concept of rights. Again, if you're playing devil's advocate, I appreciate you trying, but it's just like nothing was really accomplished there because it's all incoherent, no distinction from existing. But we've demonstrated we could just take your existence away. So it's like can you take a life away but not the right to life? No, you just take the
Yeah, but
life.
you
There's
can't
not like
say-
some lingering fart ghost called a right that's like, oh, too bad you took the skin sack. You're basically calling a right a soul in a weird way. It's like, do we believe that we're not contained to our bodies through here and after our material death? Sure. But it sounds like you're just adding a thing called a right that's next to a soul. It's like this.
Well, not
soul
only
that's
that, but I noticed that you have a red beard. Is that right? Maybe I'm seeing the color wrong, but my understanding is that you don't have one of those anyway. So argument defeated.
Right.
Yeah, I'm not ginger. But
Yeah, and no wonder you came with the soul. No wonder you came with the soul argument. It's all making sense now.
Mhm.
So
Where's
mhm.
Vespers?
But we killed it. So
Come on, Vesper. Do I need to get up on stage and explain rights?
It
Yes.
sounds like it sounds like a little soul jealousy going on here.
Yeah.
Sounds like a little
Step.
little
Soul step
bit of, yeah,
So-
a little bit of soul jealousy.
So, Flow State, are you disagreeing with Andrew's position generally over time, or agreeing with Andrew's,
on what
on everything
on the
everything.
definition? So if you treat a right, since we agree that rights aren't really a thing, but if we substitute rights for like a strongly held moral belief, maybe, right?
Mm,
That's
wouldn't work.
I can argue against that, but I'm still not sure what a right is. Like an example of something that would be a right under Andrew's paradigm.
Well, I mean, an example of any entitlements that have no duties associated with them.
So like the right to oxygen.
Yeah, sure, you could use that. There is no such right as a right to oxygen, or there is no such right as a right to gun, or the right to speech, or the right to any of these things. Really, what we're discussing there is the idea of an enforcement of will, not really a right. So when you say I'm entitled to X, right, an entitlement absent duty, or I have a right to, what you're actually saying is that you would be willing to use force to enforce your will, not that there's some tangible thing called a right which is granted to you, because that just clearly can't be the case, right?
So might is right.
Physical thing can be taken.
Might
Well,
is
no.
not might is right.
Might is
Mhm.
right. When we say right, then that's different than when we say right to thing.
We just
So-
mean wins, right?
Yeah. So
Wins.
yeah, might wins. Yeah. So when you say might makes right, that's making a moral claim. I'm not making a moral claim. I'm just giving a descriptor. So what people do is they confuse these two concepts, because right has multiple meanings. I am right is different than there are rights. So, and when you say might makes right, that's like me saying I am right. That's a different claim than there are rights.
Yeah, do I have the right to reject that rights exist? Like, like that's what's funny about the whole thing is the paradigm is deployed upon you using force, which is what we were arguing. The only thing really in effect is the force. So suddenly you're like, you have rights, Andrew, and you're like, well, no, I don't want them. And you're like, too bad. We gave them.
Like,
we gave them to
but
you.
yeah. So for instance, Jim Bob and I would both agree with you that might makes. When you get into the moral claim of right, we would both disagree and say no. Might can often do immoral things. So might can make wrong, but it's definitely going to make. Definitely going to make.
Right.
That's
But
the point.
might would be a prerequisite for right. Not all might would be right, but all right would be might. Is that right?
If you had duties and you had some position to use, this is why we argue. If it all comes down to force, the only thing we're voting on or arguing about and debating all this shit is who gets to inform the use of the force. And from a Christian view, it's very clear. We want to have the monopoly on the use of force and legislation to be informed by our ethics. That doesn't mean a theocracy. There's a way to do this. But
It doesn't even mean forcing people to do anything.
That's right.
Right?
That's right.
So the thing that's funny about it is that was the argument last night that was so baffling to my opposition, was essentially when I was able to reduce their view to it is all force, then we can reduce it to you want to monopolize Christian force for your goals. And the answer is yes.
Mhm.
And so this is why we argue about this so much, is because the secular conception of rights, and even if I were to grant a Christian conception of them, are two totally and completely different value sets. but both seemingly in the world hinge upon the idea of force. So if that is the case, I'm definitely not going to share force with secularists.
Well,
And
how
so
are
when they say
opposing-
you need to advocate for some secular right, I definitely don't want to do that.
how are they opposing value sets?
Well, because the things which they value are changeable and the things which we value are not. So since that is the case, even if we had an overlap in something that we both wanted, we could be assured that their value set can instantly change. And now they've gone from friend to foe. And that's how it's traditionally been done with them.
Didn't Jesus' entire life and death change that value set? Like that was
What are you talking about? Change what value set?
Jesus completed the law or fulfilled the law. So the value set of the Jews changed.
Well, no, that's not quite correct. But even if I were to just grant that it's true, who cares? It still doesn't hurt the position at all. Christians,
I mean, it's demonstrable.
Christians have an unchanging value set. It's not allowed to change, or you're not a Christian.
A continuation isn't a change either. Also, the conception of Jews,
but,
the way you know.
But
Jews
I would just grant it. But I would just grant it so we don't get off into, a theological tangent. Christians do have an unchanging value set. It's an unchanging value set. So since that is the case, it's an unchanging value set. Secularists have a changing value set. And so they're not compatible with us ethically. It's that simple.
I mean,
right?
that's demonstrably false if we look at history and all the different denominations. Christian values do change and morph.
No, that doesn't follow. No, that doesn't follow at all. Like the fact that there's some splintering. Hold on. If there is a normative authority and all those other, because there's many claims, does it follow that none of them are true?
No, but it does follow that we can look at the change in Christian.
They're called heresies.
Values.
No, they're called heresies.
So we're back to the. I mean,
but let us. Okay, but I'll just grant this too, right? Because it still doesn't hurt the position, right? I can literally grant every argument you have, and it'll still end up being my position. Watch, I'll show you.
I don't think
so. Even if we were to say, okay, but Christians all have a different value set. Okay, but each one of those sects of Christians' value set is still unchanging. Secularists still have a changing value set. So it still wouldn't matter.
I don't
still
think
doesn't matter.
You have a changing value set any more than Christians do.
Oh, they don't.
No, you can see.
Okay, if a secularists say, all of them say, just like the debaters last night said, that all of their value set comes from their own personal intuition and their own personal subjective intuition. So if that is the case, and you ask them, well, do those intuitions change? The answer is always yes. So it's literally impossible then, if your intuitions change, for your value set to not be subject to change all the time, which would make it incompatible with those who have unchanging value sets.
But we see the same phenomenon played out with religious value sets of all religions.
Well, what you're doing is you're creating false monoliths. I'm willing to grant your argument that each sect of Christianity has a different value set. So what? Even if that were the case, they would still be an unchanging value set to that denomination. So, and the secularists would have the problem not being compatible. Even then.
So it's unchanging to that. It's a personal unchanging value set, right?
Yeah, to say there's a deviation. To say there's a deviation in the Christian, he's granting that that there's a deviation, right? You call those 50,000 sects. He's saying each of those has now developed its own unchanging thing anyway. So it's like it doesn't matter if you try to do the deviation and say, "See, Christianity change." No, if we grant that it's splintered, we're saying, well, no. Even from this view, that individual splinter off that little off-road ramp that they use, they're using their own standard. From a secularist, it's ever changing because it's all preference based. It's not.
Yeah, it's baked in. In other words, it's baked into a changeable standard. Secular humanists are the first to point this out, that their standards necessarily need to change about what morality is and about what they would appeal to for morality based on science and consensus. So if that's true, then you're essentially saying my value set is subject to change. Your value set is not. So anytime we enter into a friend relationship with you rather than an adversarial one, we run the risk. And not only do we run the risk, but it's almost inevitable that this will happen, that eventually your value set will shift against our unchanging one, and then we have to deal with you. So the idea of compromise with these people is actually unwise, right? It's working with the enemy essentially.
So a changing value would be how many women are in the priesthood in most denominations now. I don't know how orthodoxy is. Probably not in orthodoxy, I would guess. But
yeah. So
No.
what?
Yeah,
so I
that would
mean,
be
within each splinter, we're looking at changing value sets this last century, right? The massive adoption of women in the priesthood.
There are no women in the priesthood in Catholicism or in Orthodoxy. Not a single one.
There are in most Protestant churches, and in
Yeah.
Mormon.
Okay. So each one of those Protestant churches, if we're going to consider it a monolith unto its own, which I'm fine with, whatever that value set is that allows female priests is still an unchanging value set, right? So it's still an unchanging value set.
Because these are modern changes within the same denomination.
Well, then if you change from the thing, you're not the thing, right? So this is the problem. This is a problem with the self-ID thing, and I made this claim last night too. It's a problem with self-ID. You can claim to be whatever you want; doesn't make you the thing. But even if I were to grant to you that each one of these factions factioned off, and all of them adopted a different value set, they still have to adopt it as being unchanging, or else they would deny the nature of God. And so, if they deny the nature of God, you would have to say they're not Christian. Then, like you would have to.
I mean,
even then, from that standard, each individual atheist, right, is God from their view, because their personal preferential on morality is above everybody else's, and they're fine with everybody else's being above everybody else's as well. So they just look for consensus because they're all gods, right?
Well,
so it's an ever-changing standard.
Functionally, that's no different than, like, it's mechanically, we all do that every time we make a decision. You can say that you follow Christian morality, and so you're following God, but you're making that decision every time you default to that.
Well, the difference is he's aligning when we navigate our behaviors, our thoughts, how we ought act.
Yeah, we're appealing to an unchanging standard.
Yeah,
we're appealing to an unchanging standard. Yeah.
Yeah, we're referencing.
So the thing is like, I would agree with you that there's going to be some Christians, or even many Christians, who would appeal to the same standard, who align with the standard, who maybe don't come into line with the standard from time to time, or even quite often. But we still know what they ought to be doing and how they ought to be acting, because we're appealing to an unchanging standard.
Also, I want to ask you, flowstate, if you were to come up with your own preference-based system and people agreed with you, and then you demonstrated some sort of good outcomes from your own standard, wouldn't it benefit you to keep it unchanging in the end, rather than advocate for the changing, like even from your own position?
I think that if you understand, so not really. I think that morality.
Well, I got to get out of here, guys. I'm sorry.
Right.
I just wanted to pop on and talk shit to Jimbob and his stupid backwards red hat. And tell his entire audience he's a piece of he's a piece of human garbage, and I'm sick of him, and I hope I never see him again.
There you go. I'll see you later. I'll talk to you later tomorrow or something. All right. See ya. Yeah. So that's why I ask, is that if ultimately you came up with your own system and you found like-minded people who had this like in between, like, you don't like the woke stuff, but you don't like the authority of church. You like your freedom, but you don't like all this other, whatever it is. Let's just imagine you crafted a civilization and you're sitting on top of it and going, wow, we really did something here. You wouldn't actively advocate for changing standards, given that what you're sitting on was built by the assumption of a trajectory that's not changing, some sort of higher purpose that's not changing. From your own view, I don't understand how you could possibly say, well, actually, no, I would actually build the amazing fucking civilization. And then you know what I would do? Just sell relativism in every school, uselessness, no purpose. The fact that you could be a man or a woman on the dime by waking up and declaring. Okay, I'm just doing the hyperbole of it. Why, even from your own perspective, how is it? I mean, you would ultimately be seeking some unchanging standard, even from a pragmatic view, it would be better.
I think that the key for my ideal moral system would be to understand the reason for it. What's the utility of this? And then adjust the specific behaviors or rules to pursue that desired outcome.
I understand, but that's the thing in question. Let's say you arbitrarily put the standard, the set of behaviors and the goals to be X, Y, Z. In this case, for me, it's Christian ethics. You set those out as your goals, and then you govern and legislate and build around those conditions, and you build around those goals, and you draw a through line, and then everybody who's born into it goes, hey, this is how our culture does this. That's what's called a civilization. Now, regardless of whether you believe with those believe in or agree with those particular prescriptions that are sold, we're talking about overall, regardless of your opinion about each individual custom and behavior or belief, isn't it better as a whole that those things don't change if you build them? If you build something you want, I don't know why on the other corner you'd suddenly say, well, we should just change the whole thing for no reason.
Okay. So yeah, I think that the overarching goal should be unchanging.
Right.
I think that it might manifest differently at different times, like how whether or not it's moral to steal food to feed your starving child, for instance.
Right. So if there was a paradigm, a heuristic, if you will, that gave an account of how you exist and how you ought to exist over time, regardless of era and time gone by. If you agree with me, we both agree that seeking an unchanging or near unchanging model, if the model was available to you, on what basis would you reject it if you were convinced it was the one true unchanging paradigm?
If it was available, what was available to me? I mean,
if it was available to you on a shelf, you go on a shelf and it's the one true unchanging paradigm, the true religion, the true way to live, the true account for how we are in the world. On what basis, if you saw that, you have to grant yourself a lot here.
Right.
If you saw it on the shelf, on what basis would you not pick it up?
I suppose I would not reject that. And I suppose my answer to should it be fixed? And when I said no, that was more relating to the details or specifics of how it expresses.
Unchanging standard claim. If a city increases taxes to pay for a bridge, then lowers the taxes once the bridge is complete. The standard did not change. The plan always intended the increase and decrease. This is Christianity.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point. That's a good analogy.
So
that something temporally you might say is changing in flux, but there's some through line. Right, we talk about this with the regularity of nature.
Then? What's the purpose of Christian morality?
Theosis.
I don't know. I don't speak Greek.
Sorry. Theosis. Basically, a unification of you and Christ, a life that's lived Christ-like, a lowering of yourself as your own personal wants, your own personal God, and aligning yourself with Christ in practice over time. And not like you get to the top of the stairs and you've achieved it like a Buddhist or something. You get to sit Indian style. This ongoing praxis of theosis, through praxis, through prayer, through lowering yourself, through fasting, through the sacraments. This is an ongoing thing that exists all of your life, that you're always seeking this. That's what the purpose would be.
That sounds like a terrible reason, right? The purpose is to hold yourself down.
No. Lower yourself doesn't hold yourself down. Lowering yourself in this regard means the things that you prefer, that you are led by all of your own preferences, regardless if they're ethical or not, all of your own impulses, your animal impulses. You want to do this, you want to do that. Lowering that part of yourself and filling the empty spot like a cup with the ultimate standard is the view.
So that purpose sounds like it's actually harmful to the individual who's supposed to adopt it.
How do you determine harm?
Well, if you're subjugating your own well-being desires, yourself, your own experience and existence to an authority like the church,
being a good kid who listens to his father is harmful.
Being obedient, yeah, it is. No, not that.
Do you have kids?
No, not being an obedient kid. Because ideally, the
Hold on a second, because in the Christian view, we have a paradigm that makes sense of parenting. We are lower priests of our house. The house is an icon of the church, an extension of the church, an image itself of the church, which is downstream from Christ, the priest of the church. So from your view, you just argued against the authority of the church, the submission to the church. But if you levy it against your own parenting, you have to tell your kid to not listen to you because it's harming him.
Well, there's a capacity difference between a kid and a parent and a man, a grown-ass man who's not in the priesthood and a grown-ass man who is in the priesthood. Because functionally, what you're doing is you're subverting yourself to other men.
Okay, but the thing is, do you think the woman should follow you?
I mean, not if you're going in a self-destructive direction.
No, for just in generally speaking, you're a healthy man. Do you believe that your wife should be following you, like submissive to your lead?
I think that should is a little. I don't think that there's an external should. I think that nature though dictates that almost always everybody will be happier that way. So
okay, let's say she goes against you, your will. She goes against you, your lead.
Mm-hmm.
Should she not go against your lead, or should she?
I can't answer that without circumstances.
Let's say she does. Do you tell her not to, or you say, "You go, girl"? And
well, obviously, if she's going against my desires in that moment, I would tell her not to do that. But now, I can't tell you whether or not it's a good decision.
For her? Is it better for her that she listen to you and follow you? You personally.
These questions are too non-specific.
What do you mean? You have a wife
because I could answer that both ways. If I'm saying, "Hey, come on, honey, let's drink this cyanide," she should not do that with me.
But what I'm trying to draw out, I didn't say that. I said if there's conditions, of course, that's what's in question, though. The standard by which you're leading. If you agree that women, your wife should follow you as the lead of the house, right? If you believe that, but there's conditions, well, as long as we're doing something good and not bad. Okay, the point is, if you're doing something good, and she follows your lead, based on your assessment, she's still weak because she's submitting herself to some other person external to her. The same way you're criticizing a man going to the church and submitting. Yeah, it's the same standard.
No, it's not, because male-female dynamics are different than male-male dynamics, and also different from individual institution dynamics.
Okay, so okay, great. So when you raise a son and he's a male, he shouldn't follow you.
He should be living his own life. You're not in charge of him.
At what point?
Hopefully, well, when he leaves home and becomes a man and you stop supporting him.
Okay, so great.
Hopefully he respects you enough and you're a good enough leader that he will continue to do so voluntarily, but you have no authority over him.
So just to try to make you understand the Christian paradigm, right, is what you just explained is happening in the house with the father leading the son until he's an adult. We expand that into life, that we're still children, and that adulthood for us is near the end of our life.
That is gaslighting.
No, what?
That's absolutely gaslighting. Because you're not children until the end of your life. At some point, you're an adult. You need to act like adult. From a Christian view, we're children of God. It's internal, our system. It's not gaslighting. We are children. That's actually a part of the paradigm that we're learning Christ-like ways, that we're still children of God. No, we're not children that we're incapable of doing things. Not in that regard. I'm saying the analogy is that the home represents the Christian way of life from our view, that the priest in the home is the father, and that the children and the wife follow the father, and that you couldn't expect your wife to submit to you and understand what that means inside a paradigm unless she saw that the man was submitting to something higher than himself. To have an institution,
how is she going to understand submission and the institution?
She doesn't need to understand it. She doesn't need to understand it. It's ingrained in male and female dynamics. She will naturally do it.
Great. So you believe in hierarchies?
I do.
Okay, so who's the top of the hierarchy for men?
Whoever demonstrates himself most capable.
You mean you? Just like Andrew said, the atheist has to be the God, the priest of the ultimate church of his life. So if you don't have a standard above you, because you're saying nature is hierarchical, okay? And I ask you, well, who's above you then in this nature?
It depends on on the situation. In different
Who
venues,
in
there
your
will be different
this is
hierarchies.
your life.
No, there's
Look,
not a fixed hierarchy. In different venues, there are different
look,
hierarchies.
I'm asking you, in any venue you want, who's above you?
I mean, here you are, right? Because this is your channel, this is your platform. You're in charge of this. So if this is a hierarchy, you're above me here. I have to
But
follow your
okay,
rules.
outside of here, in your life,
Okay. In my life, I mean, it just depends on the situation. The point, what I'm trying to say is that nobody is ever making my decisions for me. With every decision I make, whether I reference somebody else or whether I just do whatever I feel like, I'm still always making the decision for myself. Autonomy is not synonymous with hubris.
I understand, but that's not what's in question, Flow State. The question is, what toward what goal and what standard and what value are you tailoring and guiding your decisions? I'm not removing your ability to make choices and decisions. I'm saying there's a bigger question here, Flow State. What ultimately, for a Christian, we still have free will and the ability to choose. What we do have is a standard that we point to try to align our will and our actions to. I'm asking you, what is external to you that you're aligning your will and your actions to?
There's nothing external to either of us.
What? I just told you. From my perspective,
I know that you're trying to defer responsibility or
no, dude,
decision
that's gaslighting.
making.
No, that's gaslighting. Okay,
No.
here's what's happened. No, it doesn't. No, none of what you just said is totally false. There is a church, right? From my view, there's a church that's established. There's a preservation of the practice of the church, the teaching of the church, the liturgical services of the church, and so forth. These are static and maintained throughout. Me as a person who's fitting myself, my own life into that system, right? There's a normative authority. There is a paradigm. There is a reference of how to be a father, let's say, how to lead your family. What is obedience for a man to God? What is obedience for a woman to man? These are all things that are explained and described such that we can reference them and make sense of them. I'm asking you from your view. That doesn't take my autonomy away. That still gives me the choice to align my choices and decisions with something that's maintained, that's ancient, that's got its position in the world. Even if you didn't agree with what that was, that's irrelevant. I'm asking you, what's external to you that you're aligning your will to?
Why is it preferable to align your will to something external?
We're not talking about what's preferred. I might prefer to have, like, someone might prefer.
Doesn't the question imply
all sorts of? No, someone might prefer to do drugs and all sorts of partying and have promiscuous sex, on the weekends and everything else. Someone might prefer all sorts of things. The question is, ultimately, let's say you prefer something and you shouldn't do it. What are you then aligning your will toward if it's not your preference to want to do something that you really want to do?
So I in my paradigm, I don't align my will to something external, but I would also say that in your paradigm, you also don't, because your will is to align to that moral system. If it wasn't your will, you would not align to it.
No. I have a will, and I can align my will in my paradigm with God's will, or I cannot.
And either way, it's your will that you're exercising.
I'm exercising my will. That's not the question of whether we're exercising our will. The question is, what are we aligning our will with? You're saying, no, you're aligning your will with your will. I'm saying, no, I'm not. I'm aligning myself with something that actually goes against a lot of my proclivities and things that I would rather do.
Both of us are making the decision that we want to make.
Okay, you keep going back to the mechanics of what's happening. I'm not asking about the mechanics. For instance, if there's something on the board and you and I both have a choice in choosing what's on the board for our well-being or what we find moral. Let's say voting is this. Imagine voting was a legitimate thing. And your act of voting is the act of aligning your will with some higher thing that you see, okay? The act of voting on something, okay? What I'm not asking about the mechanism that we both use to exert our will. I'm talking about what is the standard you're aligning your choices with. Let me ask you in a different way. Flow State, have you ever wanted to do something, but you knew you shouldn't, and then you overcame your impulse to do it and you just didn't do it?
Sure.
But you wanted to, right?
Right.
Okay, I'm asking in that sense, what is the arbiter? What is the standard you're appealing to? Because clearly it's not what you want to do.
It's
because you've done
self-interest.
things, self-interest.
Yeah, self-interest. For both of our cases, it's long-term self-interest. There are benefits derived from delayed gratification in both cases, and I would say that that's why you would choose a religion as well as why I would defer gratification and not.
Okay. Okay. Does the benefit in your case? Does your actions also impact negative or positive other people?
Say that again.
Do your actions or inactions, can they both benefit or cause disadvantages to other people?
I mean, I would say it doesn't matter the paradigm. There are examples of it both ways.
I'm saying both of those exist, right? Like
Right.
your action or inaction doing something, you say for my own benefit, but wouldn't it be true if you had a family that it would be beyond your benefit? It would actually
Of course.
consider the benefit of other people.
What benefits me will benefit my family generally.
Okay, great. So is your family external to you or internal?
External.
Okay, so there is an external arbiter that determines what you align your will with.
But it's my internal value of my family.
I understand, but your external, it is external. Your family is external. Their effects, the effects that you have on them is its own thing to them, right? However, this is why I bring it up. What if your value set, what institutes being better for your family, which then in turn is better for you based on your preference, suddenly your own kid starts misaligning with your value set and goes and seeks their own value set that negatively affects you? Do you correct them or say, do as thou wilt, champ?
How old are they and how is it affecting me?
Let's
as
say
long as
let's say you have a daughter.
my daughter's 14. My daughter's
Okay,
14.
let's say-
I'll correct it.
Let's say your kid grows up, either one of them, and gets into like for God forbid, the adult industry. They prefer it, right? Now, you're making choices as a father that ultimately must have some sort of standard, ethical standard beyond you just feeling okay about the choices, knowing that your choices will affect your kids' choices and their experience. And yet, if you have a kid that pursues their own do as thou wilt structure of their own preferences are the highest value, which you're advocating now, they do something like that, get into the adult industry. Do you say don't do that? Or do you say you go, girl?
Yes. No, of course I say don't do that.
So again, the thing is, are you asking your kid to not do it simply because your own preferences?
Yes.
Okay. And then she has equal valued preferences because she has her own preferences.
Correct.
So for her to do the correct thing, she must abandon her preferences and align her will to yours, right? For her to do the right thing for her.
So in that paradigm, I don't believe that she'd be doing the right thing for her. I believe she would be doing the impulsive short-term gratification thing for her because it's going to, hold on.
No, you misinterpreted what I asked though. I want you to answer my question, not a different question. The question was, when you ask her to not do that, you're asking her to abandon her preferences and align her will with your will, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you're assuming, and you're asking her to assume that in that moment, you being the authoritative figure, the guiding principle in this case, the priest, by the way, who's above her, you're assuming that she should know to follow your command in that instance, that you know better than her in this instance because of your wisdom, because of who you are in the world, because who you are as a man and a father, because who you are in the church, except you don't have one. So the thing is, you are the priest of your home, regardless of whether you reject a church authority or not.
If she's in my home, then I do have authority over her, and that will be a full stop. If she's out of my home, I don't actually have authority over her. Hopefully, I've raised her right, and she respects me. And she's
raising her right also would assume that she doesn't follow what she just thinks is good for her, feels like she should do, right? Raising her right would have her think about she would have to ponder all of the choices she's making in life with the knowledge and the starting position that tailoring her actions toward what she just wants in the moment is probably not a good model, right?
In both of our paradigms, working for OnlyFans is a poor decision, right? And the reason that is because in the long term, over time, this is much more likely to be something that people regret than it is to be something they're happy they did. It's a short-term decision
Now she's going to have to
didn't.
listen to your wisdom and authority on that matter. Regardless, let's say she moved out, you would still persuade her to listen to you as an
Right.
authority, even if she moved out, right?
And I would do this by explaining to her why this is a bad decision, how she's going to regret it down the road. You can't put that genie back in the bottle. You're going to ruin your ability to bond with people. All of those are stronger arguments than my daddy priest told me.
Well, no, because you'd have to then justify why is it good to pair bond. Now you need a justification for the value of family over not family. Now you understand.
No, you don't.
Yeah, you do. Why
Nope.
value family? Why? Okay, I'm your daughter. Why should I value family? Hold on. I'm your daughter. Hey, Dad, why should I value the sanctity of marriage and family and monogamy and imprinting on other people, right? The ability to imprint and develop strong, long-lasting relations. Why is that more ethical than me just pursuing what I want in life, acquiring money, fame, notoriety, cars, stuff? What you have to give her a standard by which the family represents something other than what it just is, just a group of people.
You don't need to explain anything. You don't need to understand anything. We're social animals, and by that fact alone, we do value it. We value our connections. There's no explanation necessary.
So your explanation of why you should value connections is that we value connections?
There is no should. We do. People do value connections.
So if they value connections, and there are many people who do behaviors that don't value connections, how is stating we value connections meaningful if you're dealing with someone who's behaving antithetical to valuing connections? That doesn't make any sense.
I'm not sure what
you don't
you're
understand. Look, if you
I don't need to convince somebody to drink water. They want to drink
water to live. You need water to live. You can live.
And our
survival
instincts, our survival is surviving alone actually is almost impossible. If you were to just be dropped in the woods, you're probably going to have a really hard time surviving.
It doesn't follow that she's alone. She has thousands of men paying her anonymously for minutes of work online. Okay. She's talking to other OnlyFans chicks. They bond, they have friendships, they go partying together. All of that is still there. I'm asking you, why ought she value the home and what the family represents and making long-term meaningful relationships instead of short-term, really fun relationships of ever-changing people throughout her life?
Well, it's just a time frame strategy, right? She should, because she's gonna outlive those friendships.
Right, but she can just say she's going to come up with new friendships. It's all about
right, but ooh, did I just freeze? Okay.
So every time, 2:30, 3 o'clock, every single time.
You're back.
All right. So yeah, I mean, instead of looping, I'll just give you the last say. The question is, we're talking about ethics. We're talking about rights, how to construct society. What do we want families to be representing? What are they an extension of? If I asked you, hey, Flow State, what's the family an extension of? What would you say?
I would say it isn't an extension of anything. It's the foundation of things.
Okay. So if it's the foundation of things, could you have a family? Is it a family of 5 gay dudes who live with one straight woman and they all raise a kid together? Is that a family? Is that a foundation?
Well, if it's, I don't think that they're all gay if they're having sex, if they're knocking her up. But
why would that matter if they're gay or not? Right? It doesn't matter. The family. Hold on. The question is, you have a house full of 5 dudes. One of them might not be. Maybe one of them just swings both ways or whatever. Regardless, they decide arbitrarily that even though they're not going to have sex with the gay guy, they're going to use that gay guy's sperm. Okay, whatever. You'll just make up the most ridiculous circumstance. Yeah. Is that a family?
It's not one I would want to live in. I suppose it could function as a family, not in a biological sense. But
okay, you said the family's foundation. You're calling that a family. Could you have a society that the foundation of the society in regards to a family looks like that?
No, that would fall apart because men don't share things well. But that's not because we had to learn it from church. We just don't share things well, like women will. Are you saying that if it weren't for the Bible, that you'd be in a relationship with you'd be sharing chicks with other dudes?
Why? No, why would it follow you're sharing the woman? I never said they're sharing. There's 5 gay dudes. One of them is used as the father. They all live in a house with a hag. They all raise the children. Is that a family?
No.
Okay.
Because there's no stronger connection like between a husband and wife, fathers. The gay dude has no connection to the woman.
Okay, so now you're saying a family has to do with the connection that people have.
A family doesn't have to, but it generally does. That connection is going to be way stronger if there's blood there.
Okay, let's say there's a married couple and they produce children through their own blood. And they have kids and they don't have a good connection. Are they still a family?
The parents don't have a good connection?
Yeah, the whole family is disconnected at the moment. Are they still a family?
Yes.
Okay. So then connection can't be the standard for determining a family. In fact, you could have
what determines family?
No, but if you have a group of gay dudes with one hag and they have a kid and you determine that their connection is really good, right? This is another thing that's in question, right? From my view, determining a good connection, right? From our view, it looks like this. The closer to Christ you get on a circle, the closer you get to the other people getting close to it. So if my wife and I are here on the circle and Christ is in the middle, the closer we get to Christ, the closer we get to each other. So when we're talking about what's a good connection, what's a bad connection, I don't think you have a coherent standard for what it means to have a connection other than what? Getting along well?
So let me ask you a question. So if the closer we get to Christ, the closer we get to each other, and that means that to be more like Christ, to be closer to Christ, you have to suppress your own desires.
Some of them, not all of them.
Right. Do you end up better off as an individual or worse off when you get closer to Christ and therefore to your fellow man? Are you benefited by being closer to others?
You benefit others more, in fact.
And so
it's actually it's even a better argument. I would say it's reciprocal, but you being a better person closer to Christ would mean that like the impact you have on other people might even be better than whatever you receive in return. That's another element of Christianity that's beautiful, is that your duty towards something has little to do with how you're rewarded here and now. You do it for the virtue of doing it itself. That alone is itself the praxis. That it's not like prosperity gospel where if you do a bunch of good things, look at the stock rise. Like that's not Christian. That's prosperity gospel. So it's not outcome based.
Well, I mean, that's an important question, because if you're harming yourself for the benefit of others, I don't think that that's beautiful. I think that I think the others are being predatory and you're being self-destructive.
What's harm?
It's up to everybody can make up their own decision.
Is any sacrifice harm? Mental harm?
Only maybe. Then I'm talking about the net result.
Okay, so the reason I ask is, as a father, have you sacrificed something you wanted to do for the sake of doing the right thing for the child?
Yes, and ultimately, I've been much better off for it.
But was it painful to have to sacrifice something you really wanted to do in the short term? You really wanted to do this thing. In the short term, it was painful. Oh, what a hassle. I want to do what I want to do. All these damn kids are getting in the way of what I want to do. Damn it. Okay. If in Christianity, we actually make sense of sacrifice as a virtue. In your case, the only thing in a certain view lens for you to make sense of sacrifice in the short term is some sort of gain after for yourself, which differs from a Christian view. If I sacrifice myself for my kid, if I sacrifice myself and it ends up that I find myself in a worse condition, let's say it's a physical thing that happened, like I sacrificed myself, became paraplegic as a result of it. That's an instance where I still did the right thing, utilize sacrifice and will and ethics, force for my child, duty-based system. and it was actually not in favor of my overall outcome and experience in life. Do I still do the right thing from your view?
Well, you do the right thing. Yes, you do the right thing, but it's not because of the Christian ethics. It's because you value your kid more than whatever that thing is, and this paradigm is demonstrable even throughout all of nature, even down to fucking bees and ants who sacrifice themselves to protect the queen.
That means that when you started off, you said, well, no, my values are all derived from what I want, what I gain out of it, and what I benefit. And now you've come around to saying, well, no, ultimate sacrifice would be the betterment of the subject. That's the recipient, the beneficiary of the sacrifice, and has little to do with your outcome and what you want. So it sounds like you're caught in between two standards for what constitutes what we should do, what we should follow, and what's ultimately good in the world as far as our behavior. Because you have one side, flow state, that says seek all of the things in the long term that benefit you, like Ayn Rand, and then the other, the father part of you, I would say that that's the good side of you, the father, because the father represents the whole, whereas the kid, the part of you that wants to do what you want, is the kid side of you. That's why even grown men, you and I, both still could battle with a childlike preference of what we want versus as men, what we ought do, what is our duty as men and fathers. That's why I don't see it as a pejorative to have priests, fathers in the church who represent a long-standing tradition and prescriptive element to talking with them. It would be no different than talking to an older brother. It would be no different than talking to your father and saying, hey, Dad, can we sit down? I'm having trouble with this and this and this. I'm not sure where you got the negative connotation to something that would otherwise, outside of the church, be you just meeting with sort of like a morally, let's say, a more wise figurehead than you. Like, that's a weird thing.
If somebody convinces you that to act like a child and defer and act out of your self-interest, and that's literally exactly narcissistic abuse, to gaslight somebody and tell them,
Wait, who said to do that?
That's the paradigm being presented by the church when it tells its members that they should be like children, and the priesthood, the church employees.
No, that's a word concept fallacy. No. You missed everything I said. I'm asking about your view, first of all, is that under your view, if you seek an older person who's more wise than you for advice on how to live, how to deal with this, are you cucking?
You are cucking if you choose that person based off purely institutional commands. Yes. If you're not the one deciding that this is a person I respect and I know why, I'm seeking out there. But if an institution says,
what if those, hold on, dude, what if those two go hand in hand? It's like you're trying to say,
well, they might overlap.
Hold on. Can the correct prescriptives be part of an institution? I mean, like, look at just basic things like farming, for instance. I have a meme that says like, farming, off the land, it's based, right? Flow state.
It's pretty based.
Okay, so if they're in the comic, the person's going, hey, I'm interested in farming, and the older person says, hey, I've been farming for 2,000 years. You're like, base, teach me, right?
Right.
Not cooking,
but you chose him because he's been farming for 2,000 years, and you recognize the benefit.
Hold on.
What?
So another example: fishing or hunting.
Well, I didn't get to finish my response to that.
Hold on. Let me just follow it through. If you want to seek out the mastery and the information and the how-to in regards to hunting, you seek out a master who's older than you, let's say, in most cases, and you learn under him. You submit to his authority, right? That's based, right?
Yes, it's based.
Okay.
How did you arrive at that decision, though?
Hold on. It's based because, you arrive at the decision because
you're dog walking me to a conclusion by not letting me answer all the way.
Hold on. You're asking me why did I come to the conclusion that he was the authority? Because he's continued what? Long-standing institutional and secret traditions and information, right? You would argue that he got it from someone else, right?
Correct.
Did he cuck? He's based, but didn't he cuck to learn it?
The two, you can an institution can have the right authority, right?
So then it's not the institution.
If you get there by defaulting to authority, you're cucking. If you get there because you understand and recognize the value that person brings to you, then that's
Great.
not cucking.
So when you say the church is just cucking, what you're assuming, without any knowledge of it, by the way, you're assuming that they don't have coherent, valid, useful, helpful information that's been preserved for 2,000 years inside of normative authority. Hold on, an institution that ultimately, under your standard, really is no different than the farming institution. A family, let's say, a patristic family of hierarchical, a hierarchical system of older people, men who have delivered this sacred knowledge of farming downstream to their generations and those willing to learn. And under the condition that the person who's learning submits as a learner, that they submit as a student, that they put aside some of their instincts to try to know better, right? This would be true of knife making, farming, hunting, house building. You yourself would be the cuck as the first person on the construction site. If you said, listen, I really want to learn roofing, you didn't know how, you would cuck the whole week. Okay. However, you have this weird special place for a church where if the assumption is the way in which to live a good life, a Christian life, has a normative authority, now it's cucking.
No, the metric you're using is age of the establishment in this example. And so that doesn't land you with Christianity at all. If that's the metric by which you
say that again,
the metric you're using to justify church authority is that it's been around for a long time to handle this stuff. If that is the measure of a good authority, you should be Hindu or Russo Christian. Or,
no, I'm not using time alone. I'm saying this specific.
Okay, what's the other variable?
Well, the coherency of the view, the coherency, the necessity of this particular God to justify knowledge, truth, why things are good, why there's evil, a paradigm through which that makes sense. If you look at some other religions, just because they've been around long enough doesn't mean that they're coherent. So
Judaism is older and more coherent.
I would never, no, there's no more coherent. What's a more coherent view than Christianity?
More coherent because the Christian doctrine includes Old and New Testament.
Name one other religion or view that's more coherent than Christianity.
Judaism. By both of those
Judaism's more coherent?
Yes.
So God, you don't know who God is?
He's the God of the Old Testament.
Okay, you're in doctrine, you can enslave the goy.
Right.
I
didn't say it was more desirable.
You're a different species, essentially, than the goy. Is that coherent?
It is coherent. It's not desirable, but it is definitely more internally coherent.
Judaism is more internally coherent than Christianity.
Yes.
So you're talking about post-Christ Judaism?
I'm talking about Torah.
The Torah, that's a continuation.
The Torah. I mean, it's necessarily more internally.
You're talking about the first books of Genesis.
Because
you're saying that's more
Christianity
coherent.
Includes all the Torah then adds more shit.
Look, so you're saying just the Torah is more coherent than the continuation.
I'm saying if the Torah is not internally coherent, then the whole Bible can't be.
Great. Under Christianity, do you think that humility is something that needs to be grounded in God?
Under Christianity, I don't know.
Under Judaism, if they had humility as a virtue, would that be grounded in God?
I don't think they do have it as a virtue, but I do think that under that paradigm, their virtues are grounded in God.
The unknowable God? How is that coherent?
How is he unknowable? He talked to Abraham.
Well, knowing the person of Christ, right? Knowing his life, knowing what it represented, knowing that God making manifest, lowering God to the standard of human, right? That kind of act of humility would be absent in what you're referring to as early Judaism. By the way, Judaism, as you know it, flow state, as we reference it constantly on the stream and elsewhere on the internet, that's post. This is post Christ.
That's fine.
People, yeah. Just saying. So pre-Judaic. But by the way, did you know that you should be making the same argument about 50,000 sects that you do about Christianity to Judaism? Do you know how many different incompatible mystical Judaic views? Right. So how is it coherent if you're not using the same standard you judge Christianity with its splintering of sects? You're not using that same critique on early Judaism with their mystical pluralism.
Question. That's a different question.
So which is the true Judaism if it's the most coherent one?
I mean, this is a different question, which isn't relevant to what we were talking about.
Well, you said Judaism is more coherent than Christianity, and
there
I
goes
asked,
those goalposts.
no, you said Judaism. If it's the fact that pre-Christianity, as you know it, chronologically speaking, there's a pluralism of what you call Judaism. I'm asking you which one of those is the most coherent.
I would say any one is more I mean, I don't know the doctrine of all of them specifically, but I can say that if we look at it mathematically, any sect of Judaism is more internally coherent than any sect of Christianity, because Christianity will have all the same internal contradictions that Judaism has, as well as other ones.
Like what?
Then whatever in the New Testament is added that contradicts either the Old Testament or the New Testament.
Yeah,
there are more opportunities for self-contradiction in the Bible than there is in the Torah, just by virtue of its size.
Do you have an example
of an internal contradiction? Sure. Which day is the Sabbath?
Oh, the changing of the Sabbath, you're saying?
Yeah.
That's the contradiction?
I mean, that's just an example of one that is presented by Christianity, but not by Judaism.
Oh, so they didn't change the Sabbath day, Saturday, Sunday.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
That's a contradiction. They kept that day, and that's what makes the worldview coherent.
No, that is an example of one thing that is internally contradictive within Christianity that is not internally contradictive within Judaism. There are many more.
So the contradiction from your view is something occurred in the past and no longer occurs in the future, and that's a contradiction.
Which day is the Sabbath according to God?
The Sabbath is Saturday, and there's Lord's Day is Sunday.
What's Lord's Day?
Well, if you're gonna critique the things that you,
I asked about the Sabbath. I just asked about the Sabbath. I don't know.
Well, I'm just asking which of the Christian views is holding the Sabbath on not Saturday as opposed to the Lord's Day on Sunday.
Well, Christians celebrate the Sabbath on Sunday. Which Sunday? Didn't I say that on Sunday? It's a deviation from, huh?
Which Christians?
Like the Catholics.
Okay. All right. So if there's a pluralism of Christianity and all these things change, I'm not sure which one you're going to point to the contradiction. If from your view, Christians can be pluralistic in your critique of Christians, they can be pluralistic.
I mean, there are more examples. We could go, there's a ton of them. Basically, the whole of the law. The whole of the law is contradicted by Jesus. Or concluded.
The whole of what law?
God's law.
The whole of law,
Jesus fulfilled the law. Jesus contradicts all of the law in the Old Testament.
He contradicts all of the old law?
Yes.
Okay. So you would say someone comes along and they change the old law, as opposed to if there is a continuation, right, of the Christian view chronologically with Christ, that moving Christianity forward in its path, right? You're saying that it's contradictory if it's moving beyond something before it.
Well, it means it's definitely not unchanging.
Well, God being unchanging and the way in which Christianity is unveiled or say practiced in high resolution, that's not a contradiction. For instance, even from your secular view, do you think morality itself has improved over time throughout humanity?
I think that human morality waxes and wanes.
But it overall improved in comparison to all previous generations, civilizations. Would you say it improved?
That's too broad
sense of morality
for either a yes or no answer to be right.
Okay, so you don't. So you're saying you just won't answer that. Your assessment of morality and how we generally see human beings of value has not increased over time. How we perceive the value of human beings.
It would definitely depend on your starting point. Like I said, I think it waxes and wanes, and so
my starting point is as far back as you can remember, as we can document. As far back as you can go, chronologically, is it true from both a secular position and let's say a Christian position that the resolution in which we've apprehended a moral position in the way we practice and treat each other has increased over time?
I would say it's decreased.
It's decreased.
Yes.
Really?
Yes,
okay.
I would think so.
Okay.
Because morality, which is a biological function,
is it? Where's the biological function of morality found because biology is physically
Well, it's
concrete,
it's
right?
demonstrated throughout the behavior of all sorts of group animals.
Wait a second. Animals have morality?
Do animals sacrifice their own impulses for the betterment of the queen?
No,
right? The queen
no,
bee,
no,
the
no. That
queen
does
ant.
no. That's collapsing two things. You're just smuggling in that any reaction to stimuli that looks to us as some sort of sacrificial moment in time where there's slow motion and violin music is itself an act of morality, as opposed to, well, what we know of the animal world is that they react to stimuli and they're coded to. So you'd have to separate a moment of conceptual contemplation, a moral dilemma, if you will, in the animal that chose to do the sacrifice as opposed to just reacted the way it does. So you can't, nor can any vegan, tell me how are you going to separate a reaction to stimuli in an animal and compare and discern that it's exactly like a human doing moral evaluation and making a choice.
And this is why I say that moral evaluation is not an essential. Mental evaluation is not an essential part of moral behavior. Altruism, which would be self-sacrifice for the group, right? That's demonstrated far beyond the thinking organisms. It's a biological impulse.
Oh, so
we also have the impulse.
So in the bee, the wasp is born and it immediately goes into a self-deletion pod for the function of the group. You're observing that and saying that bee did a moral sacrifice?
I'm saying that behavior is the same behavior that we exhibit when we behave morally. We just wrap it up in better.
So when the lion kills to get the food, are they doing a moral thing or an immoral thing?
They're doing a self-preservation thing.
Is that moral in biology?
It would be a moral. It's the same behavior. So yes, it would be a moral behavior.
Great. Here's the thing: moral behavior 1, sacrifice or killing for self-preservation. No different.
Well, we're talking.
Hold on. Premise 2. That's no different than human behavior. Can I kill my neighbors and gain all of their utilities, amenities, and food and water in the name of self-preservation? Is that a moral act now?
Is that a moral act? Did you just answer that?
Is it a moral act? Because your premise, it must entail that what I just stated is a moral act. Why? Because I did something for self-preservation.
So, no, I'm what I'm saying is that
so it's not the same with humans.
Morality is self-sacrifice, right? In Christianity, you subjugate yourself to Jesus, right? So you're suppressing your own desires, your own selfish impulses to go to something bigger and better. That is exactly the same behavior we see in.
That's not the reduction of morality in Christianity. So no, and that's not what's happening in animals. No, it's not. When I think of my preferences, you're acting like animals have the thought about thoughts called preferences and this ability to supersede their impulses for some other thing that they do that's better for things. That's a massive baseless assumption. A human being is peculiar in our ability to assess, evaluate our own thoughts and decisions, weigh them out on a moral landscape, if you will, whether you take a consequentialist view or not. The point is, there's no animals you can demonstrate are doing this sort of moral evaluation. Now, what you're saying is saying we don't need the moral evaluation, just the action alone. Yes. If the action alone is what the action is, you can't tell me it's moral, because anything an animal does is just them acting and not thinking. Anything they do.
Well, then to that degree, if intellectual reasoning is the crux of what makes something moral in your paradigm, then I would agree. I would say that then, I mean, in mine, nothing. Then
if an animal can do something moral, then an animal can do something wait, hold on. If an animal can do something immoral, then an animal can do something moral. So tell me when an animal did something immoral.
I would say that it's not that animals can do something moral or immoral. I would say that morality, the concept of morality and the intellectualization of it, is mental masturbation. We're following our biological impulses and then glamorizing it.
Great. So then setting laws about what people should and shouldn't do, including murder and rape, is mental masturbation.
No, it's an extension of of the same
What?
biological
But-
imperative we see in
No,
social creatures.
there are biological imperatives among other creatures who grape each other. So if
Right.
you think that that's just what it is and nature wins, then you don't really have an argument for humans persuasively trying to overcome their impulses. You should just say
The-
humans should fulfill all of their impulses and desires, right?
The reason that we don't grape is because our survival as individuals, our survival is better served making friends with others than enemies. Cooperating gets us a lot further in life. Grape is a form of it's a violation of that.
Well, all I have to do is present a situation in which grape is necessary to preserve life, and you have to say it's good. You're just saying now we've reached a point in which it's not functional, utility-based function to do that. The question is whether what we do or what we don't do, right? In your view, the view you're actually defending right now is that we're just fulfilling on our biological impulses. So you have to say it's our right, but you're saying there's nothing morally good about fulfilling not graping. That just happens to be the effect of our biology, which could change under new circumstances, right?
There is something morally good at it, or good for the individual and good for society. It's good for us as the individual because it's a much better long-term strategy, and it's good for the other person who didn't get graped, and it's good for society because there's less graping. So it's better for everybody.
Okay,
but what I'm saying is that we have the impulse to act in this way. It's not. We don't need to pedestalize the thought process. That's actually just hubris.
Hold on. Let's say we develop years and years of not graping, and from your view, it's just an effect of evolution and utility. And we get to the point where hold on, and we get to the point where there's only 5,000 people left, right? Hypothetically, right? Now, do you justify grape for the betterment, the future betterment, long-term betterment of human beings needing to survive, to exist? Do you justify grape?
I think you would have a hard time selling that because we're so ingrained. This is so biologically baked into us that
I'm saying
we're going to have an aversion to it. Regardless.
I didn't ask if it would be difficult to do. I asked you if you're the guy. They look to you this whole time. Oh yeah, flowstate's view. Let's get flowstate in here. There's 5,000 people left in, and your view that you're arguing right now, you transposed to this hypothetical. I'm not asking if you'd have a hard time persuading people. I'm saying if you had the ability to use force, which is not persuasion, the right moral thing to do from your view is grape, right?
Is the alternative consequence extinction?
Yeah.
Then yes, grape is the right thing.
Great. So even your standard on grape, right, is ever changing and not really there's nothing you're appealing to other than strict biology. All you really need to justify certain behaviors, flow state,
it actually is just the right it's valuing life.
No, it's circumstantial. It's just circumstantial.
Everything is circumstantial within Christianity.
I know that. No, but no, not really, because no, it's not. Look, dude, if you were to be forced to grape a family member so that another family member wouldn't die, would you do that?
Wait, say that again.
Would you be, if you were forced to grape a family member to have another family member who's present live, would you do it?
I don't know. That's I'm not going to engage with that question. It's
it's the same question. No, hold on.
Noah's daughters did it.
Dude, stop. It's the same exact hypothetical, but with less people, right? You accepted the moral thing to do is grape on the mass scale when there's 5,000 people left and extinction was the only other option. Now I'm making the same hypothetical with more local circumstances. And now you're saying, you won't be consistent, right?
Right. So consistently, I would say that yes, the moral thing is to do that and not to let the other one die.
Okay. So that's what I'm saying is,
and Christianity supports that. That's basically very similar to what Noah's daughter did.
No. A Christian view, if you were to be put to death for lying about who Christ is, you're to say the truth and be shot in the head. So not anything you're saying and trying to do this like crazy back post diction reference to the Bible or no, it doesn't matter right now.
Old Testament's crazy. See, this is.
See, you're doing exactly that.
Again.
Listen, we're talking about right now.
Right.
We're talking about right now. In this, you just said, well, Christian moral ethics.
The Bible
is also,
gives us an example of this. That's
no, dude. Stop going back to the Bible. The current Christian view, right? No, you can't just go back and do your own interpretation of certain instances in the Bible. We're talking about right now.
Yes,
I'm demonstrating right now that it's not always the case that the Christian ethicist does whatever they need for the other person just to simply live. For instance, in your case, you would grape your family member for the other family member to not be killed. In my case, I wouldn't, and we would all die potentially.
Yeah, I don't know that I didn't necessarily say that I would. I said that I think that that's probably the more moral thing.
So you would tell your son that was the more moral thing to do.
And the Bible agrees with me. Christianity agrees with me.
No, that's not true. That's
yes,
bullshit.
it is.
Where does it agree to say you should rape someone if you're under the gun? What are you talking about?
When Noah's daughters got him drunk, they did that to violate his. Because he wouldn't have done it.
Wait, so something was depicted as happening in the Bible, and that means it's prescribed? Come on, dude. Really?
So the Bible stories aren't. We shouldn't take our lessons of morality from the Bible. Are you fucking kidding me?
What did I just say?
You just agreed with me that religion isn't necessary for morality.
Flow state. If something's written as having happened in the Bible, does it follow that it's prescribed?
In the context in which it was.
Yes or no? If something's in the Bible as descriptively happening, is it follow that it's prescribed?
Not always.
Great. So just that's enough. Just stop with the nonsense.
Oh, get the fuck out of here.
It's nonsense. Wicked Wally, $5. If we discovered a new island called Grape Island, where public grape was moral, on what basis could you tell them it's immoral? When do you apply force? Wicked Wally, that's a good question.
It's immoral because morals are the rules of society. To have an
that's society,
right? So the rules of behavior. So since we violate they didn't violate anything. They're based on negative. Hold on, you got to let me unpack this whole thing.
I know, but you're not engaging with the question. It's really annoying.
I am. There's just some foundation that has to be laid. Can I lay the foundation?
Look.
I know you don't want me to lay the foundation.
No. Let me just respond to this again because you're dodging here. Look.
No.
If there's an island that determines that this is okay, it's not violating what's determined to be okay.
Individuals cannot determine what is moral.
Okay.
Because
you're not going to answer.
I mean, we're never going to get there if you keep trying to cut off my answers.
You read the question and see if I read the same question. Go ahead. Read
if we discovered a new island called Grapeland where public grape was moral, on what basis do you tell them it's immoral? When do you apply force? You tell them it's immoral because it violates it breaks the free will of your neighbors, right? See, you're looking at me like this because you didn't let me build the fucking foundation, so you don't even.
I know this is frustrating.
It is frustrating because of your discursive techniques.
What are they?
You're trying to limit my responses to incomplete responses
because you're not answering the question. If in this system they've determined what's moral, how can you call it a violation if what's determined on this island that's what's moral? What are you violating? Because some other thing?
You're violating the other person's free will.
They don't value free will as moral. Do you understand?
Everybody values their own free will as moral.
No. They've determined on this island that like a movie where it's suddenly okay to go out and what is it called? Purge.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The lottery. Have you read The Lottery? The old story, The Lottery? Small town. They do a lottery every single year. They agree morally. Hold on. Vagine has to read something. Sorry.
Ending innocent human life is wrong. Abortion ends innocent human life.
That's true. I don't trust an Indian's view on anything, though. That's what I'm saying is that the island itself is determined that it doesn't value
because everybody values their own. Everybody values it for themselves.
It doesn't follow that because you value something for yourself that suddenly someone else has to value it from your own system.
And that is, I mean, that's the paradigm. That's why it would be a weak society. If your society tries to circumvent the value of individuals' free will, you're going to have a weak society. It's going to fall apart.
Okay. Whether it sustains isn't in question. The question is whether it's moral, right? So
It's
something could
always
sustain.
immoral.
Look, can an immoral society sustain for, I don't know, years?
Not for
100
very
years?
long. No.
Okay, an immoral society.
So
Can't
morality
sustain
is critical for the persistence of a society.
Okay, and what is it you're calling moral then?
Morality is effectively negative rights. To foster trust, to have a consistent, coherent society, you cannot have neighbors mistrusting their neighbors, right? You and I, if we're neighbors and we're too busy watching each other to make sure that you're not fucking my wife or I'm not stealing your cows, that society is going to collapse and we're going to be vulnerable to external threats. So morality are the rules that govern relationships within the society, and they're based on negative rights.
Okay, were there societies that lasted a long time who didn't have the concept of rights?
We could use yes. But I would
then
say
it's not rights.
That the further they deviated from respecting somebody's negative rights, like the Aztecs, for instance, the further they deviated, the faster they fell. We can see that in Rome. We can see that in the Aztecs.
Okay, I understand you're arguing the speed at which something deteriorates if it's linked to some sort of broken morality. I might agree. We just don't agree on what the standard is, because the standard you're saying is sustainability, and I'm pointing to, well, there were sustainable civilizations that had no concept of rights. The concept, the life,
like what?
Rome didn't apply land rights to people, peasants and things like this. So there were still feudal approaches to sustainable societies that, from your view, didn't value rights or even autonomy. You could still have a sustainable kingdom, go out and pluck a peasant, throw him down a set of stairs and feed him to a lion, and nothing really would change in that society. So I don't know why you're arguing.
I mean, I disagree with that. I think that because a society is strongest when the people inside of it want to be inside of it. If you're at the top of a society and you've got people with internally and externally attacking you, you're going to go down.
I have a question. Let's say you have a powerful moral society. Internally, they all value each other's property. They don't do all of this stuff you're talking about.
Like the Mormons.
Okay. You take that society, they develop an army. There's a society adjacent that doesn't live like they do. They, by force, they move with their horses and their horses and their army, right? And they take over by force and slaughter that adjacent society. The ones who submit don't get killed. They become a part of that. Is that good or bad for that society to use that terrestrial force applicator right there?
For the strong society.
Right. So now your argument,
it would be good for them.
I understand. Now there's a macro threshold in which you permit the active attack, assault on other people's autonomy and property.
Yes, but I would look at it from the other direction, which is that when you treat everybody in the whole world as if your behavior towards them is equal, right? What you're not actually increasing the value of others, because the human mind can only handle about 150 relationships at a time.
I understand what you're saying, but this is kind of, I've demonstrated a contradiction in your view that in one instance, one context, it's a degradation to society if you act against your fellow man in that society. However, the same principle, if it's applied externally to other societies, actually justifies the forceful terrestrial gain of other societies, raping and pillaging. Now, listen, the reason I asked about raping and pillaging is because now you have a moral system that at some scale, one unified, successful society, now is it's morally good under your standard to use their power and force to attack and invade the neighboring society, get rid of any defectors, take any of the women and children, take all of their clothing, anything they have, right? That's actually a morally good thing because it's sustainable to the society that's already doing well.
It is morally good to prioritize your people.
So
It is moral.
So,
I do.
so you're so you
I do not have the
favor,
same moral obligation to a stranger that I have to my daughter.
I got you. I understand the relationness, the relatedness that you're going to. I'm talking. This is why I'm wondering at what the threshold is when you turn other people into literally just objects that you can kill, so long as you've got your group. So you do so you're okay. Essentially, I don't want to straw man you, but based on that standard, you should have no problem with Israel using force and obliterating its neighbors because it's only preserving its own people, right?
So I personally, from where I'm sitting, don't necessarily. So from my perspective, it's wrong, and I'll tell you why. It's because neither of them are within my society, right? My in group psychologically.
So they're wrong. Yeah,
they're both
no,
external to
I
me. Hold
understand.
on, they're both external to me, so I perceive them on equal grounds.
Okay, got you. I understand that, but the system that they're using is your system,
Right?
Yeah. So based on their system alone, they're completely consistent. You couldn't really argue other than they're not me. They're not actually inconsistent in their view because they're appealing to your system of ethics and morality, which is to say the in-group using any means possible to not only defend itself, but to aggress others and expand itself is justified morally just for the sake of their identity existing.
I would say that, yes, it is justified unless it's at some point it becomes frivolous and just cruel. But yes, I don't think that there's any reason to allow a threat to your existence to survive.
Okay. Got you. So now let's say there's no threat. You just want to expand for the betterment of your people. There's no threat, but there's an adjacent tribe or nation. According to your system, you can still advance, right, and take over.
I would say that there's, yeah, probably, yeah.
You could, right? You could just take over, otherwise unjustified, not a response to regression, just terrestrial gain by force, your own you have your own group,
your paradigm, right?
Yeah,
there's competition
like
in the world.
Like Viking. So why is that not true for neighbors then?
Because they're your in group. They're your society.
No. I have a neighbor who doesn't
because the strength of the individual is maximized throughout the use.
I know, but he doesn't share my values. Just like you just said, Israel doesn't share. They're not you. They're not your in group. Well, what defines an in group is your shared values, right? So if your neighbor is inside your proximity, you don't value them just because of this arbitrary line of borders. You value that they're in group because they share your view on things, right? So
this would have been more true historically, that it would have been geographically.
Well, I'm just saying, if we take your standard, it should be consistent still with the neighbor thing. So long as the neighbor is deemed, so long as the neighbor is deemed not in group.
And I think that's
use force to take over his shit.
That's where we have an interesting moral paradigm now, because with technology, our in group has radically changed from any time in human history before it.
What's the thing that, okay, hold on. Before you go further, what's the thing you're determining? What's the determining variable that you know someone's in your group or not?
I don't think there is one.
So then how do you know the Israel people are not in your group then?
You'll know. I mean, it's do you internally identify with them as in group?
Okay, let's say you have a neighbor and you don't internally identify them as in group. By your standard, you can use force, break into their house, take all their shit, and kill them.
So I would say that in group will have more to do with your day-to-day activities, right? If this is somebody who lives in the same society as me, right? Presumably, if I have a neighbor I don't like, but we live in the same area, every day in our day-to-day life, even still today, we're interacting with the same broad group of people in a positive fashion. So if I have one specific dislike of a person, but we're all inside the same cohesive society, then he's part of the in group, whether I like it or not.
So what's that thing? Is it you're all in the same debt system? You all eat at McDonald's? Like, what's the thing that's bonding you together other than proximity?
It would be shared positive, shared friends, basically. a shared friend group, a
friends.
shared network.
Wait a second, hold on. So a Facebook group that has a bunch of shared friends are in proximity to another Facebook group who are not their friends. They could use force and kill the other group because they're not in the in-friend group, or what?
No. So, well, I guess it would probably still be a geography, right? Because we live most of our lives. We go to the store, we get along with. It's branching out to here to where. But,
so proximity. So then you agree that someone who's not your friend, who you don't even like, can live literally above you in a rental situation. They are in your group now, part of your shared community, just by proximity, no additional variables. And that's the thing that binds you to them.
Human relationship dynamics are, well, dynamic as fuck, right? So you're asking me questions that are trying to rigidly define something that is not rigidly definable. So for me, frequently, yes, it will be just our geography. However, if you take if you look at like gangs, the Bloods and the Crips, obviously they've got different in groups. So this is a dynamic system, and we're all, hold on, this is a dynamic thing. Human interactions are dynamic, and we are part of multiple systems.
Yeah, I understand, but if you have a standard that follows with that you can kill neighboring tribes just because they're out of your group, and you have an in-group that's willing to do that, if you're willing to bite that bullet, it seems only fair that I ask for a rigid designator for what determines what's out-group. If you're going to base your standard that you could literally kill other people for them being out group, if you were willing to kill someone for being out of your group, I would, if you were going to teach that to people, you sure as hell should be able to say what distinguishes whether they're in your group or not if you're willing to kill them, dude.
That seems reasonable. I think that I would not teach somebody to follow my lead on this just to understand how their nature is. This is human nature. It's biological, like I said, and this paradigm expresses itself all throughout human history, regardless of religion. This is always how it manifests. We can intellectualize things all we want, but it doesn't change that paradigm. That is reality.
That
there are in groups and out groups, and in groups of human tribes fight out groups.
That's right. But I agree that that's always existed. The question is whether or not it's automatically justified just because there's a differential between the cultures. From your view, whether it's justified just on its face. Someone's different, therefore you can kill. I don't take that approach. In fact, that I think your view is more primitive than mine. And maybe you've spent some time yelling at Christians and creation tards and calling them archaic in their beliefs and, evolve with us, dude. Like, we got science now. I actually think
it is more primitive. I agree with you. I think it is more primitive.
Your view.
Yes.
Yeah. So you're saying because it's more primitive, are you saying it's closer to truth because it better describes the reality of the brutal nature that is biology?
I'm saying it's a clearer perspective on what actually is the human condition.
But isn't the human condition, from your view, also to produce, in your view, because you don't believe they're actually true, to produce in-group theology that cohesively binds people together? It seems to me that even from your view, that if everything we do and think and all of our behaviors are downstream from some sort of evolutionary mechanism of preservation, it seems that theology would be one of the best glues to people. And in your view, you should advocate for it, even if you didn't believe it, for the mere utility of what you're defending, which is in-group is inevitable. Anything that we craft, technology-wise, language, art, religion, if you think those are all creations, I'm not sure how you could argue against them. I would argue they might be the best technology, if you're going to say they're technology, for cohesion. I don't understand why you argue against them.
I would say that there have certainly been some successful ones, as we can all reference, but there have been a lot more unsuccessful ones. Because that's
fine. They're successful, but if you were to acknowledge the success of the ones that do exist, you'd probably include Christianity, Islam, some branches like Mormonism, some branch off or whatever. Their ability to maintain their in-group customs. They're in their view an unchanging system of behavior and relations and how to operate and stuff.
Yeah.
From that view, it's almost like the best thing for your own view. And I wouldn't advocate for any religion, but it seems like the best thing for you to do is actually become a part of a larger body of a hierarchical authoritative structure that has power and influence. Why would you keep coping this individualism if your own view not only justifies but advocates for some sort of collectivism? It's a weird position you're in.
So you're saying I should start my own religion? That's a great idea, jimbob.
No, I think you should join the church, but I'm just calling you out that if you were to be consistent with your macro view, you would actually reject individualism at some threshold, and you would say, oh shit, we need to bond at higher orders of in-group whatever you call them, connections or associations, and whether they're true or not might not even be important. It's what's important is that they're pragmatic from your view, is that they're useful. And
you have it's hard to argue against that. It might be true. That said, though, I think that there has to be a stronger unifier than what I view as a lie, or at least it's not demonstrably true, right? You can't.
There has to be a better unifier than it being true. Is that what you're saying? Is that what you're
saying? I'm saying that if the unity is built on a lie, then it's a weak unity.
Okay,
or let me rephrase that. It's a high risk unity. It's a very high risk unity.
Okay, but here's the thing. Everything you've defended up to this point, I'm going to start wrapping it up, would be consistent with a group that assumes rights exist. Pragmatically. Everything you've defended up to this point has you defending and advocating for a large collective body of people who work together, acknowledge each other's rights, property, don't rape each other, don't steal.
Negative rights, yeah.
Okay, yeah. Rights. I'm saying everything you're describing assumes rights existing. Now, we've already covered from both of our view, rights are a fiction. So when you said, well, I don't think we should believe a lie just because it's useful, and I don't think any lies actually demonstrate utility in so far as keeping a society afloat. I would say that's completely false. From your view, rights are a lie, something worth believing in for the utility, and it's demonstrably true throughout civilizations that theology in general is more cohesive, at least in group, even if it meant friction with proximal antithetical views that were either anti-religious or incompatible religions, that internally you would believe a bunch of lies. You could have rights as a lie that would have utility. You could have a belief that you're a special breed of people from a special God, that you're special, like the Jews, a special kind of people, the rest are goy. That's actually very useful from your own paradigm. I think you should convert to Judaism.
I think that we
cool it with the anti-Semitic remarks.
I think you should move to Israel, dude. Grow
you know
some
what?
curls out.
I've thought about that before. It seems like it would actually be kind of a pragmatic religion to join, but they don't recruit the same way that others do.
That's true. A little more strict filtering system, which also is pragmatic from your own view. Actually, very smart.
That is pragmatic.
Yeah, the bagels.
I think that the Jews do in-group, out-group really well, actually.
Yeah, I think you got the spirit of the Jew in you. Let me tell you.
Damn it, you're kind of right.
Oy.
Bagel.
All right. Anything? I'll give you the last word. I don't know if you stream daily where people can, all my followers can go troll you and make fun of you while you're streaming. Yeah.
I do. My channel's called Flowstate, and if you search Flowstate, you probably won't find me. I'm lost in the sea of self-help and meditation music, but I do have the handle. So if you put @Flowstate, that'll pull me up. And come troll me. I love my trolls. I love my haters. They're the most loyal fans.
Wait, did you know that name was going to be horrific when you made it? Like how many ponytails would show up on the feed?
When the channel started, there was 2 of us, and the other guy named it.
Oh yeah, Flowstate. People really ran with that. That's unfortunate.
Yeah, it's okay. I'm overcoming it, and I just told all your trolls how to find me. Y'all in the chat ain't shit. You won't say shit. You can't. I think.
Well, there you are. The challenge is out there. He's saying you're all scared to join his panel and refute him on stuff. So accept the challenge.